I'm gonna wait for just a second to see if anybody pops on for today's class. I usually wait until there's at least one. Okay, there's one, and it's Kayleen. Hello, friend. How you doing? Hope you are recovering and getting ready for your next cruise. Recovering from one and then going right on to the other. How fun is that? I've seen your pictures and they're awesome with all your family and your grandkids. Okay, we've got two on. I'm not sure who else is the other, but say hello. I will say an official good Thursday morning, everybody. It's fabulous to be here. I don't know about you, but we have some weird weather and it's raining today. It's been snailing, which is both hail and snow at the same time. It's really weird. So we've had some interesting things going on, but it's definitely a good time for stamping. So that's what we're gonna do today. We are going to use up our stashes of stuff in this class. And so this class officially is going to begin. So let's just start with a little business as we typically do, and then we'll take a deep dive into our Use It Up class for April. So let me flip my camera and we'll get going. Hello, Marcia. I'm glad you're here. Good to have you. Good to have everybody. Okay, so let me just flip my camera here. Sorry, you're getting the hand. It's like, shut your eyes. There it is. Tighten this up. Okay, so what we have a lot of announcements this morning. Hello, Denise. You missed my official Good Thursday morning, but good Thursday morning to you, Denise. Good Thursday morning to all of you. That's my catchphrase if you haven't caught on. So if you haven't caught on, Thursday mornings at 10 o'clock Mountain Time is when I'm stamping here on Seeing Ink Spots, Backstage Pass, and on my other page. So how about it? Let's begin. Announcements are next week, Thursday, 10 a.m. It'll be a good Thursday morning for a Technique Time pickup class. And so this is a BYOS, meaning bring your own supplies. And we are going to be stamping with the Garden Greenhouse bundle. However, I will have a buddy here with me, and I'm going to ask her to do the same cards using another stamp set and set of dies. So I would say Greenhouse Garden, artfully, the artful expressions, artistic expressions, there it is, hand-penned petals, the painted poppies. Just find a bundle that has similar types of dies as the Greenhouse Garden. And similar meaning that there are some that cut out elements from the kit, and then there are standalone dies. And so that's what we're looking for this particular class. Okay, so, and I will post definitely everything that you'll need for that class. And my mom is watching. Hello, mother. Anyhow, good to have you here. Your kit is in the mail for this class. I just haven't gotten out and about because of the weird weather. Doris, hello. Good morning to you too. Okay, so that's next week. Bring your own supplies. I will post that list of what you'll need Wednesday. Okay, and then the week after that, the big granddaddy class of them all, Technique Time. And we are featuring the Let's Set Sail bundle. Again, you don't have to have the Let's Set Sail. Maybe you do the same cards using another bundle that is a punch and stamps. I could see, maybe doing the same layouts with maybe the strawberry punch and bundle or the Cactus Cuties. So don't be afraid if you don't have the bundle to not come. Come to class, okay? And that will be the 28th and 29th. So there will be a Facebook Live that will be recorded and kept up for future use. Or on the 29th, Friday night, which will be the Zoom class where we can get together and jibber jabber and ask questions and have fun stamping together. Okay, so moving right into May. Can you believe it's already time for May? May, we will be upstyling our paper pumpkin. Now, you guys, you have until May 10th to subscribe for this kit. If you are interested in the new in colors, this is the kit for you. This kit actually has, let me see if you can see it. There's going to be some little in color embellishments. There are 10 cards in this kit, 2 of each design. So I'm thinking we're getting 2 Sweet Sorbet of the same design, 2 of the Parakeet Party. I want to call it Parakeet Pete. And so if I call it Parakeet Pete, you'll know what I mean, right? The Starry Sky, the Orchid Oasis, and the Tahitian Tide. So it'll be fun to have all of those colors. You'll see them in real life. So get yourself subscribed to Paper Pumpkin. If you subscribe to Paper Pumpkin with me and you've registered for Let's Set Sail, you will have an add-on kit in your Technique Time kit. Moving right along, next month, I want you to be thinking about using up your stash. Our theme next month will be beaches. So beaches, rivers, lakes, water, tropical. So that's kind of where we're headed for May's Use It Up class. That will be the 11th, okay? Oh, it looks like our upstyle will be on Cinco de Mayo, going back, just looking at that, which will be fun. Hold up, May 10th, but is okay May 5th. Wait, what? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Let me go back. This should be June 5th. I have jumped ahead a month. I'm missing a paper. Okay, sorry. Thank you, Kayleen, keeping me straight. This will be June, so not Cinco de Mayo, on wrong thing. Sign up by May 10th for this one. On May 5th, it won't be the in color. It will be the Change is Beautiful. That's what I'm missing. And I thought I printed out that advertisement. So I will fix that and keep you all straight on that one. I'll fix that later today. So thank you, Kayleen. Okay, so do we have it straight? So May 5th is Change is Beautiful. May 10th, sign up for that June Upstyle class. Okay, that's what you need to do. Thank you. Now I know what you mean. Okay, and our technique time for May, our pickup class, is going to be flowing flowers. So this will be a good one. You don't have to have flowing flowers. Grab a floral stamp set and stamp along with me, because that will be a bring your own supplies kind of class. So that's what's coming up. Now that I've thoroughly confused you all and myself, it's time to use it up. But before we use it up, I will just give a real quick plug. I don't have all the details ready. We will have a Manly mega camp. It was going to be a mini camp, but I've switched it to a mega camp now that I've seen the new catalog. In May, the end of May, we will have the return of Studio Ink Spots, and it will be He's the Man mega camp. And so it will be all about making things masculine. So, and I've got some fun ideas going. So, join me for that. Join me for that for sure. Details are coming in the near future. Now we move along to our Use It Up class for April. So this class is, I am specifically using up my Bloom Where You're Planted papers. Okay, and for those of you who have a Use It Up kit, you will find that you too have some of those Bloom Where You're Planted papers. I have already fussy cut some of the little plants out, and I probably should have had you do that ahead of time, but you will, in the ones that you find in that little jewel bag, cut all of those out. But you can still stamp along with me, get everything ready, and then just tuck the plants in later once you have them cut out. So we'll be doing that. Now, if you don't have Bloom Where You're Planted, just grab any pack of paper you have and matching cardstocks. Give yourself like 3 colors of cardstocks. I've selected Evening Evergreen, Cinnamon Cider, and Sahara Sand because they match these papers. Or just grab 3 colors that match your paper and white or vanilla, okay? And stamp along with me. I am using today the Simply Succulents stamp set because I don't have the set that matches this, but you will see how easily this will work. You could also bring in something like Forever Fern or look at any of your floral sets and use the leaves and the greetings from that. So that's going to be the challenge for today. What do you have to use it up? And so what I'd like you to do is, after today's class, post photos of what you've done using, if you had the Use It Up kit, and what you used in lieu of one of these sets, or maybe you're just using entirely different paper, but you're going to follow along and make the same layouts. So you're going to you're going to copy and share is what we're going to do. So hopefully that makes sense. And you've heard the spiel before, but there it is. So let us begin. So I have in this Use It Up kit, we are using up some retired ribbons. So go into your stash and find some ribbon that matches what paper you're going to use, or find a neutral color that matches Bloom Where You're Planted. And then I also grabbed some of this. This is the Mossy Meadow braided trim from a couple of years ago. We also had it in the neutral color, the natural color. I love this stuff. So I was using it all up. And I've also got some things pre-cut ahead of time. So I'm just going to move this aside, and we're going to start with our first card. And our first card, we're going to use the Cinnamon Cider card base, and I'll give you those measurements here in just a second, and the Evening Evergreen all at the same time. I'm going to move all these other pieces kind of out of my way here so that I have them handy. And what I want to do is I'm going to teach you, and you probably know this trick, but we're going to do a cut and trade sort of thing. And that way we're going to get multiple colors and different layers by just mixing up our card bases. So these card bases both are 4 1/4 wide by 11 inches. So it's half of a sheet of cardstock. Each are half a sheet, scored at 5 1/2. So I'll give you a second to do that, to grab 2 pieces of paper, bring in your trimmer, and cut them down to 4 1/4 by 11. So I've got 2. Excuse me, I'm going to get a drink while you're doing that here real fast. I have a frog in my throat. Okay, so now once you have those 2 pieces, what I want you to do is we're going to cut 2 3/4 off of each one. Okay, so there you have it. I've cut it at 2 3/4. So now we're 2 3/4, and then we have the remaining piece. Okay, so we've got that. Now let's do the exact same thing to the Evening Evergreen. We're going to trim that one off at 2 3/4. Okay, so now you can kind of move your trimmer out of the way, save all your pieces. And so now what we're going to do is I'm going to trade, and I'm going to add the Evening Evergreen to the Cinnamon Cider, and I'm going to add the Cinnamon Cider to the Evening Evergreen. So now I've just done kind of a quick tradesies, all right? So I'm going to put these 2 pieces aside because they'll be our second card, okay? And this is going to be our first card. So I'm going to do some surgery here to put these 2 pieces together. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut myself. So find yourself a 1/4 sheet of Whisper White or Basic White. This is Basic White. Grab yourself a 1/4 sheet. There is a 1/4 sheet in your packet if you have a Use It Up kit. We're going to need a few more pieces of 1/4 sheets. So if you do have a Use It Up, you're going to need just another, another half sheet or so. So anyway, so I'm taking this 1/4 sheet, and I'm just cutting myself a 3/4 inch strip of paper. It is Basic White. So I'm cutting a 3/4 inch strip of paper, and it's 4 1/4 inches wide. Okay. So it's the same width as this. And I'm using one of my dies from the Basic Border Dies. And I'm going to put this down and cut this piece right in half. Now, if you don't have the Basic Borders dies, you could just actually slice this down the middle with your paper trimmer. You just won't have a, the zigzag edge. Or you could, if you have a pair of, I don't know, maybe you have a pair of fancy scissors, or you have a different border from another set. go ahead and chop it down the middle. So I'm going to chop it down the middle. And what I'm going to do is make sure that my ends on each of the points. So I'm not going to like be right in the middle like that. I'm going to try and make it fairly precise, if you get what I mean. So not like that, but right in there so that the point is on the edge. So I'm going to cut that out here real quick. Got my Stampin' Cut Emboss machine beside me. And I'm a little slower when I'm in here because it's a lot higher than in my stamp room. Okay. So the great thing about this particular die is when you cut it out, it gives you the same shape on, you've got two of them. It's a 2-for-1. So I kind of love that little addition there, or that magical moment. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, what I'm going to do here now is I'm just going to glue one of these to the inside. My usual glue gets stuck. Okay, I have a take your pick tool. No, I have my take your pick tool, but I have an old piercing tool that we sold many years ago, and it's just right for unclogging glue. It's my daily ritual. I probably should have done it before we started because I knew it would happen. It happens every time. Every time I sit down to stamp. Okay, so a little bit of glue on that edge. And I'm going to add this right here to my card. Okay. Now I have enough of an edge here that I can add just a few dots, and I'm going to add some dots right here. Whoops, my glue is coming out a little fast. Okay. Going to add some glue on these dots. And I'm not going to shut the card yet, but I'm going to line up my piece of, oh shoot, Queen. I totally forgot to emboss this side. Okay, well this card's not going to be embossed, but I'll show you my original that is. Because I needed to have done it before I put the zigzag on, or the rickrack. Okay, so there you have it. So, you got to let it set up. I'm jumping the gun here, so we'll just chat for a second. So line that back up. Squeeze that on. Okay. And once that comes together, okay. Oh, come on now. Behave. That side doesn't want to stick. Okay, so now we'll let that set up just a little bit more. Once you have that together, you might have some glue on the inside like I do, but I'm just going to go ahead and take that off. But it's going to be okay because we're going to cover this up with piece of paper, of course. Okay. And now what I want to do is this one, I didn't get it right down the middle nice and straight. So I'm going to trim this one so that it's a little bit more even. And hopefully I can do that without destroying it. But I'm just going to eyeball it. Okay. That's better. Now I'm going to use this piece to trim off the inside here. And so I'm just going to add this. I'm just going to cover that up right like so. Okay. And this side I'm a little bit weird, so I may have to fix this off camera. But that's where that piece is going to go. So let me show you my original because it's nice and tidy. So here's my original. This is the card we're going to be making. This is where I should have done the embossing, but there you can see how I've added the piece together and then covered up my mechanics on this other side with this one. All right, so that's what we're trying to achieve. But I've made a few goofs here and my piece is a little bit skinny, but that's okay. I'll fix it later. Okay, so then what I want you to do is let's grab a few more pieces. So in your papers, you have a piece of this brick paper if you have the Use It Up, okay? The other side is this really cool evening evergreen leaf pattern, but we're gonna use the brick side. So we're gonna need that. And I had put on the list of supplies to grab your layering circles. Okay, they're kind of a staple item for me. And this is the largest of all the circles, okay? It measures about 3 1/8 across. And we're going to place that right down here and get down to the very bottom and to the very edge because we're gonna use all of this paper, okay? So go ahead and cut yourself a circle. Now, if you don't have layering circles or something like that, you could cut yourself like a 3 by 3 square. Or maybe another large shape that you have. Okay, so let's close this so we don't see my goof. So that's gonna go there. So that's layering circles. Save this. We are definitely gonna be going back to it. I'm just gonna put my die away. Okay, and also in your kit, I punched out this punch is retiring. This is the tailored tag. I like this. This is a nice little punch. I punched that out of soft succulent. So again, you could use any little label or punch shape. It doesn't have to be that. That just happens to be the one that I'm going to use for that one. And we're going to use the ribbon. So grab yourself a piece of neutral or kind of a natural ribbon. This piece is about 9.5 inches long. Okay, so that's going to come into play here. Also, in your pack of paper, you have 2 of these pieces. You have one, and let me show you this one. You're going to get kind of I've already kind of worked mine. So you have 2 of these pieces. One where the grain is going horizontally and one where it's going vertically. Grab the vertical one because the horizontal one on the back side, we're going to want some of those plants. Okay? We'll get to that on our 3rd card. Okay, so, oh, I just munched my plants that I cut out. Okay, there we go. All right, so with this piece of paper, I want you to just trim off a half an inch. Okay, so a 1/2 inch off of this. Okay, we're gonna use that as just a little bit of decor, a little bit of layering on our card here. Okay, so we have that. And in your goodies that you have, oh, you know what? I'm missing a pot. That's not good. I can tell I don't have my, well, maybe it's in here. Yeah, it is in here. Oh, good. I thought, uh-oh, I didn't cut out my pot. So here's all my little pieces that I've trimmed. So in your Use It Up kit, you have I rough cut some different pieces out for you, and then you fussy cut them. Okay, so you've got some pots. We all have the same 4 pots. So cut those out. And then we all have a whole bunch of, in fact, you have more than I do, different pieces of plants and things. So we're gonna grab this terracotta pot for this card. Let's turn that over. And we'll save these. We're gonna use them for sure, for sure. And the plant that I want to grab for now is this one right here, okay? So that's the one that we're looking at. And I'm gonna do a little bit more detail cutting on that, and I'm gonna show you where we're gonna cut that. So let me just kind of move these, scoot them out of the way. Okay, so you've pretty much cut it out, but for me, since we are layering this on a piece of paper that's not the same color, I'm gonna trim out more of this background in there, all right? I know it sounds crazy and you're gonna think, well, why is she doing so much detail cutting? But it does make a difference in the end, okay? I think it does. Now, to me, I think this background here is a lot like soft seafoam. And so if this were sitting on soft seafoam, I wouldn't worry about it because it wouldn't show. It would kind of blend into the background. But that's why I'm going to do a little bit more detail cutting here. Great, and I don't have my detail scissors. So I'm using big honking scissors here. So I'm gonna come in here, right up this edge. Let me see if I can get up just a little higher here for you. and I'm gonna come around this leaf and I'm gonna separate these two, but that's okay because we can glue them back together. Okay, so there's that. And now I'm just gonna kind of clean this up down this side a little bit and detail in here with my big, huge honking scissors. It's hard to do with big scissors. It's a good thing I have most of it cut out. Okay, there it is. So I've just kind of pulled it apart and now I'm gonna put it back together right the way it was, but I've just cleaned up a little bit more of that background paper. Okay, so now that we have most of our elements here, let's do a little bit more stamping. Let's go back to that piece of quarter sheet of basic white. I'm gonna cut myself off a 1/4 inch. Okay, so give yourself just a 1/4 inch. I know that's like super skinny. Well, not a 1/4 inch, do 3/8. 1/4 inch is a little scarce. Okay, 3/8. That's better. It wouldn't be a class if I didn't make a mistake, right? So we're gonna take that and I'm gonna use cinnamon cider because that's my color in here. But pull a color that you're using. It doesn't have to be cinnamon cider if you don't have it. Just pull a nice light brown or a green. Either color would be fine. And I'm using the image that says, "You've been on my mind," from the Simply Succulents set, this one right here. So for this card, maybe just find a greeting that is kind of long and skinny, okay? Doesn't have to be this exact one. Or you could leave it blank until you know what you need this card, what purpose you're gonna be using it for. So I'm gonna stamp the "You've Been on My Mind," and I'm gonna do that right in the middle here. Great. And to finish it, I'm going to trim off the end just a little bit, and I'm gonna flag the opposite, the left end. So I'm gonna straighten that one up and I'm gonna flag this one. And so I'm gonna bring in my trusty banner builder punch because you know I love it. It's just part of, it's in my go-to pack. I use it on everything. Okay, that and Wink of Stella, you know it. You know it. Okay, and I'm gonna trim just a little bit more of this off so that I can get in there. Okay, pieces are stuck. Okay, so I can get in there and flag this end. And so I know this punch is a lot bigger than what it is, but if I turn it over and sneak my piece in there, can you see it? Even though it's not a 1/2 inch, 3/4, or 1 inch, I can still line it up. It's a little bit harder, but there it is. And I have a little flag action going. Okay, keep that punch handy. We're gonna use it again and again and again and again. Okay, let's do some more stamping. And so with any stamp, it doesn't have to be a succulent. Notice that my plant isn't even a succulent. You could use a leaf image. You could use anything you can find. Just create yourself some background on here, okay? So I'm going to use the same. I'm going to use cinnamon cider, not soft succulent. I'm going to use cinnamon cider on this. And I'm just going to kind of place several of these around, and I'm going to turn the image so it's never facing the same direction. Okay, so I just have some on my paper there like that. And then I was so excited to start stamping. I wasn't in stamp mode entirely, and I should have embossed this. Okay, so we're missing that embossing, which is a bummer because it's a great addition. I should have embossed that. And I should have done this and speckled it so I didn't have to cover all this up. So now I need a piece of, I'm gonna use a piece of scratch paper here. We'll use one of these, we'll use this. So I'm just gonna use my scratch paper here and I'm gonna cover that up because I don't want my, my rickrack to get any of my splatters. And so I'm gonna splatter 3 ways here. The first way that I'm gonna splatter my background here is with a cinnamon cider Stampin' Blend, or you could use a marker, or if you don't have cinnamon cider, just get a brown tone or a green tone that matches and just give yourself some splatters. So fleck that, okay? Then I'm gonna fleck it with Stamp of Stella, Wink of Stella. Okay, kind of priming it. I'm pushing on where it says push, and now I'm gonna flick that in the cap the same way I did. So this class, we're gonna be doing a lot of splattering and speckling because it just fit. Then with your water painter and a white ink pad, we're gonna splatter one more time. And so give your white ink pad a squish so that you're collecting some ink in the lid. And don't juice this up too much. You can see I had white in there before, but just enough that it's more like a paint, and we're gonna splatter that, okay? Now we're gonna need to let that thoroughly dry. Hi Terry, glad you're here today. So let those splatters dry. Keep this handy, we're gonna splatter some more on the inside, okay? So while we're waiting for that one to dry, let's work on the inside. And so what you're going to need is a quarter sheet of white cardstock. So grab yourself from your stash a quarter sheet. And I said a quarter sheet, we're actually gonna trim it down to what I say, you know, the typical inside measurement for that inside panel, if you want some of that card base to show, is 4 inches by 5 1/4. So I've cut myself a 4 by 5 1/4 inch piece of paper, and we're going to stamp the inside of our card, okay? So here's the inside. It's not very, you know, it just matches the card and it's nice and earthy. So what I'm going to do is we're going to stamp a greeting, and I'm going to stamp a greeting. This one says, you make the ordinary extraordinary, okay? So I'm gonna mount that on my block here, and I'm gonna eyeball it to make sure it's straight and it looks a little crooked. And you've seen me do this a million times before, but I'm gonna stamp it on my scratch paper, on my grid paper, and I'm gonna follow one of these lines on my grid, and I'm gonna kind of line up one of my edges of the block to see if I'm stamping, if my stamp is mounted straight. And you can see here that it's not. It's slightly low on the one side. So I am going to just lift, no, I need to lift this side just a little bit. So I'm just gonna kind of, well, I didn't mean to pull it all the way off, but I'm just gonna rock it up just a little bit. I'm gonna do the same exact drill that I just did. Ah, that's much better. So I know it's one of those steps that you go, do we have to do this again? But if you want your greeting to be straight on the inside, do it. So I'm actually pulling out Cinnamon Cider and Evening Evergreen, and I'm tapping in my Cinnamon Cider first because that is the lighter color. And then I'm going to just get the bottom portion with the Evening Evergreen. So I'm kind of getting a nice two-tone effect. And I'm gonna stamp this towards the top. There it is, that looks great. So I've got that two-tone color effect and it's straight on my paper. Because what I did is as I was stamping, I eyeballed that the edge of my block was parallel with my paper edge. So I know, a lot to think about, but it's one of those tips that takes your artwork up a notch. Okay, so let's go back and let's splatter again. So let me kind of keep some of these things out of the way so they don't get splatter on them. So, and a little can go a long way. So there's a little bit of that cinnamon cider splatter. That's kind of fun to say. Here comes a little bit. And you know what? I'm gonna turn my card so that its splatter isn't always in the same direction. Okay, there's a little wink of Stella splatter. And I'm even going to do the white. Believe it or not, it does add a little bit of texture. That little bit of puddle of paint adds just a little bit of, like I say, texture. Okay, so that's gonna need to dry for sure. All right. Any questions so far? Let's bring this one in and let's bring our pieces in. I think this is, yep, we're dry. We're good. Hopefully I have all my pieces still. Okay, so let's just start to assemble this card. And the first thing we're gonna do, and I'll bring in the finished right over here. Let me scooch over so you can see it better. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is add dimensionals to the back of this one. Okay, so this small little sheet of dimensionals is actually from a paper pumpkin kit. So there's that. And this is gonna go down first. And I'm gonna make sure my bricks are straight. You know, if you're gonna use the bricks, just make sure that they, you know, you don't want them off kilter. That'd be a little weird. Next step, I'm gonna do my ribbon. And to secure my ribbon, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lay down, and you could do this with tear and tape, a strip of tear and tape, or this is Stampin' Seal Plus. I'm just running a, you know, I don't know if you can see, there's that shininess. So I just put a row of that down, kind of a strip of that down, and take your ribbon and fold it in half. Okay, and you're just gonna set it on there, just right on there, okay? And it's not all gonna stick, but by the time you lay the other elements down, it will stick. Let's flag this end of our little trimmed piece of Designer Series paper. Okay. Now, if you don't have the banner punch, you could easily have done that with a pair of scissors too. All right, so this one is going to, well, first I need to grab my little tailored tag here. This one's going to go down, and this one is a little different. What I want you to do is just put one dimensional on one side of it, because the ribbon fold will act as the other dimensional. So I'm doing just a dimensional there so that when I take it off and flip it over, it's up above, okay? And it's going to sit right about here, okay? And again, I'm just making sure that it's straight, that it's not, you know, I want it to kind of look good. Next is going to be this awesome piece right here. And I'm gonna put snail on this, not snail, Seal Plus. And I'm putting Seal Plus on this as opposed to glue because I'm sticking to a bunch of fabric here. And so that way it just, that's gonna be my adhesive of choice for this spot. And this is just gonna run over the top of that. Okay, and again, I'm making sure that this edge of this paper is parallel with my bottom, because the ribbons might kind of take your, you'll be kind of be like, oh, wait, because the ribbons aren't exactly straight. They might kind of make it hard to see what you're doing. Next, I'm going to add the pot. And before I add the pot, I'm actually gonna plant my plant in the pot, okay? So I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna do just a teeny bit of glue on here. Now, if you haven't cut out all these plants and pieces just yet, don't worry about it. What you can do is get everything ready up to this point and then add the plant back in a little later, okay? And then this piece is going to glue back in there as well. So we're just kind of reassembling it. Okay, and I'm gonna kind of tuck it behind a little bit and this one ahead. Looks like it's growing right out of the pot. Okay, and now I'm gonna put dimensionals on the back of this. Where did they go? Here they are. They're facing the wrong direction. So I'm going to put a dimensional. Where what? There it is. I'm like, where'd it go? Okay, so you definitely want a dimensional on the leaves. And then I like to put one like right there because it kind of holds those pieces where they need to be. Okay, and so that's going to layer into here. Okay, and I think I'm going to do one more dimensional, or I should do just a piece of one right down there at the bottom. And that's going to come into here. And I think that's about all the dimensionals we're going to need except for, and I'm going to trim down a dimensional here. Let me trim a few so I have them ready to go. I'm going to trim one piece of dimensional for this end. And this is the flagged end of my greeting. Okay, so I have just one there on that end, and then this end is going to glue onto the pot. Okay, so that's kind of how I've got things going. So let's assemble that. Okay, peel those covers off. And then this is going to just kind of tuck down in here. So now that we've kind of added these elements, this ribbon isn't going anywhere. If you remember that top piece that wasn't stuck to as much of the stamp and seal was kind of wavering, now it's in there. And then this one's gonna come right into here. Before we do that, grab yourself some linen thread or something to make a nice, like thin, easy bow. If you have the Use It Up kit, go to your Mossy Meadow braided linen and pull one of those strings right out. Now, don't pull it apart this way with your hands moving away from each other. What I want you to do is grab one and then pull on it, pull it straight out, okay? And it might mean that you're having to kind of move this down. See how I'm kind of moving that down as I'm pulling? Okay, and that will easily slip out, okay? We're gonna do that again on our next card, but on this one, let's take that and fold it in half, okay? And you can chop it, okay? And now let's just tie a bow. So real easy, we're gonna just tie a bow. And this bow is gonna start out looking pretty ugly and uneven, but just get your ends, just pull it to where you need it to be. Okay. And it doesn't have to be exactly the same on both sides, but just kind of get it there to where you want it. Then give it a nice, I like to really hunker down on these knots to get them nice and taut, nice and tight. Then trim that off. Okay. And I'm going to lay this, it's going to kind of live right there. And then this piece is going to go over top like so. So I can see that right there is where I want either a glue dot. You could do a glue dot there, or you could do more of your Seal Plus. So I'll do a glue dot since I have some handy here. These are more of the Paper Pumpkin glue dots. I'm going to set that right there. And then flick this off, flick the little cover off. I didn't like these glue dots at first. Now I love them. These are the ones I like to use. I don't even buy the other ones anymore. I just use those up from my Paper Pumpkins. Okay, there's that. And now I can layer this across the top. I'm going to add just a little glue for where it's going to sit on the pot. A little glue. Look at that. That was a lot of glue. And I'm going to turn my ribbon, my little twine bow here just a little bit. And then this is going to just set right there, like so. Okay? I'm slightly in a different place than I am on my original, but very similar. You know, each one's a little bit different. Okay? And then move your threads around where you like them. And if you want to trim some of that off, you can, which I'm going to. And let's add some gems to the front of this card. I'm using the classic matte dots. These are what I have left over from our last Studio Ink Spots, backgrounds, blending, and borders from that camp. You could use anything though. Any elements you have that's perfect. So I'm gonna use these cream colored ones, and I'm gonna do one there, and I'm gonna do a large right about there. And I'm gonna do one more, and I'm just gonna kind of pick up right there in the nook of that plant, okay? And there you have it. I think one last thing that I want to do to the front of this card before we jump to the inside is I'm going to trim my, gonna, do some cutting here. That and that, okay? So you could trim your ends. This one's a little bit different, okay? So however you'd like. Super cute. I can't believe I forgot to emboss. I mean, I brought everything out. So the difference here is this one is embossed with the timber. This is a great 3D folder. It's called Timber. It is in the, it's in the carryover list right now, and you can find it in the new catalog when it comes out. So I should have done that before I ever glued that white rickrack or zigzag edge onto there, okay? So that's our front. That's the only difference, okay? So we're using up our Bloom Where You're Planted. I always say one last thing. There is one last thing. On my original, I did add some Wink of Stella to these leaves. I told you, I really like her. Okay, so just a little Wink of Stella here and there. Okay, Wink of Stella. It's my card candy. I love it, just like I love candy. Okay, so now let's finish the inside of our card here. All right, so we need to do some more stamping on the inside, and we've got this piece ready. It's probably dry by now. Yep, those little wet spots are dry. So I'm going to glue this to the inside. Okay, so there you can see I covered up my glue mess. And so this here, if you're joining me a little late, I didn't cut my piece straight, and so I've got a little bit of a mess. Off camera, I am going to fix that. But for now, we're just gonna, know that it's a mistake, and we're gonna fix it later. But I am gonna remove this glue. Okay. And we're gonna stamp this side, and I should have stamped this before I glued. We are just doing everything so backwards today. Okay, back to the cinnamon cider ink pad. And a succulent or a leaf image or anything you have on hand will be fine. I'm gonna repeat the one that I used on the outside, and I'm gonna give this a stamp there, and I'm gonna rotate it, and another one right there. Looks good, looks good. And it still worked even though I had all that bulk on the front. I'm gonna bring my scratch paper in again and cover this side up, and I'm gonna splatter. Again, could have splattered in a different order. Maybe on the next card we'll get it right. But it all works, it all comes together. Okay, gonna splatter that Wink of Stella. Come on. I think I need a new Stella. Actually, you can take these apart and kind of squeeze this to pull in some, if you pull in a little rubbing alcohol, you can get more out of your Wink of Stella. I think this one's juicier. Yep, it is. I have about 12 Wink of Stellas on my desk, and I'm not joking. Okay, and then let's do a little bit more of that white, because I love the white splatters on this especially. I think it brings our eye, it ties in all this other white that is rather stark. Okay, so there's my white splatters. Look at those, look really good. Do you see them? Hope you can see them. Yep, see those white splatters? And then as you pick it up and turn it, you get to see all of those pretty Wink of Stella. They do, they just kind of wink at you. Okay, so grab one of your pots and one of your plants and let's use that. So I'm using one of these. So I have pre-cut, you should have one or two of those for sure. And a pot, still in the little bag here. I'm using this gray pot. This one right here. And I'm gonna do the same thing I did on the front, and that is I'm gonna glue the plant first and then add it to my piece. A little bit of glue on the stem. Okay. A little extra glue there. And I'm gonna use my dimensional for lift, and I'm gonna use that, put it right over there, and that'll give it a nice, keep it in place. And I'm gonna add this right in here as a little bit of interior decor. And there you have it. There's the, I'll show you the one that doesn't have the goofed up zigzag rickrack piece. But there you have it. There's my first one and done using the Bloom Where You're Planted or whatever pack of paper you're using. I'm just curious to see what you do use. So go ahead and snap a picture when you're done and post it on the Backstage Pass. Let's see what you've done with, you know, the layout. Copy and selectively, you know, edit whatever you're going to make. So that case could mean copy and steal everything, copy and share, copy and selectively edit. Just have fun being inspired by that trick where we traded the papers. Speaking of traded the papers, let's move to our next card. And this is where I've traded the papers. So on the other one, we went like this. With this one, we're going to place this one this way. And look at this cool planter card we are going to do. There's some really cool details in here, folks. But I like that what I've done is with the Designer Series paper, I've created kind of a planter box, you know, a brick planter box, and I've got all kinds of plants in there. I love this tag use here. It's a nice added dimension. And we've got our embossing, which we're definitely going to do. I'm not going to forget. And then the inside, lo and behold, there it is. There's the hidden pocket for sure. We have a hidden pocket for a gift card. And then I've got some lovely detail on the inside that's stamped. Now, originally I didn't have this white piece of paper in here, but I had to add the white piece of paper because what I stamped on the inside looked so bad and it was so big and I had to cover it. So, and it actually turns out that I like the way it finished everything. So it was a happy mistake. So come along with me and make my happy mistake card. The first thing we're going to do for this card is we're going to do the embossing that I forgot to do on the last card. So on this one, I am using the Brick and Mortar 3D folder, okay? This is a really cool folder. I have the logo face up, okay? That's important that you have the logo face up, and I'm going to use my craft pad, my white, my Whisper White. I'm gonna open up, now notice that's where that logo is, and I am going to add ink to this side of my embossing folder. So I've just pounced some ink on there. Now I'm gonna put the front of my card on here. So here's the front, okay? I kind of have to flip it over. And I'm going to lay it down nice and even. And I'm gonna shut the folder. And now I'm gonna run this through my Big Shot with the seam end in first, okay? You want that seam end in first so that you don't crack your folder, okay? So for the 3D folder, you're going to need your Big Shot platform or the base number 1 and base number 4. So this is a number 4 plate. If you don't have a number 4 plate, but you have the number blue or the color blue, that's the one you're gonna want for a 3D folder, okay? It's a blue plate. Just running this through my machine. Okay, and now look what we get. We kind of get some of that mortar is kind of picked up with that white ink. And you can get it to show more the more ink you add. But I think it kind of adds a nice, cool dimension. Here's the dimension on the back side without that color. So that just kind of makes it cool. And it picks up on this piece of paper just a little bit. Okay, so that's that. We're started there. Got our embossing done this time. Now, in your stash of supplies, grab that piece of brick and mortar paper that we had. And what I want you to do is cut 3 rows of bricks off. Okay? So I'm going to cut 3 rows of bricks. 1, 2, 3, right there in that mortar line. And there's our planter. Keep this. Using up every little scrap of that. Okay. So there's our planter. And then you had the piece that we cut from the other card. So that's going to be in here. From your white cardstock, you're going to cut a piece that is going to be, I believe this is, what's our measurement here? We're going to be cutting this white piece, and it's going to be 4 by, I think, 2.5. So we need a 4 by 2.5 piece off of here. So let's cut 2.5 first, because we always cut the narrower measurement first, most of the time. So there's 2.5. Now I need to make this by 4. There it is. Okay, so there's my 2.5 by 4. Okay, and this piece is going to get splattered just like we did on the others. I'm going to splatter it with my marker, and I'm going to splatter it with Stella. Okay, so she's going to come in here, and I'm just kind of flicking at the top where you're going to see things. I'm not going to worry about the white with this one. And this is going to glue onto my evening evergreen here. I have to be a little careful because that Wink of Stella is still wet. I don't want it to smear. So center this on this layer of green, or whatever color you are using. I'm curious to see what you guys are making. Okay, there's that. Now let's add some dimensionals here to the back of this brick piece of paper. And I'm kind of eking them down towards one side so that I can glue my plants in. I can literally plant them in here. And I'm gonna do, I know this seems like a lot of dimensionals, especially for me, but I am gonna, because I don't want it to sag. I don't want it to, sink in areas. Okay, so add yourself a bunch across the bottom. Whew, that was a lot. Okay, so all of these dimensionals are going to be on the bottom edge of that. And I'm going to center this, on the bottom and the 2 sides. Okay, now let's bring in our card base here. Now what I'm going to do is glue this to my card base, making sure to only put glue on the one side. Okay, and you're just gonna center that the best you can. Okay, there's that. And in your stash of paper, we trimmed some of this off, but let's go back to this piece here. And this is the one that has plants, but we're gonna use this side. The other one that has plants, the lines are horizontal, okay? So this is the vertical piece. Okay, so the vertical piece, we need to trim this down to be 4 by 5 1/4. So I'm just going to trim this down to 5 1/4. Okay, I believe it's already 4. Yep, it's already 4 inches wide. So let's add that to the inside. I just realized what I blew on this card. I was doing so well. Thought, oh, I splattered at the right time. I embossed at the right time, but I sealed my pocket. So this one's not gonna be a pocket card. If you want it to be a pocket card, when you glue this piece on, just glue the edges, okay? To make it a pocket like we normally would. Oh, that makes me sad. Oh well. Now I don't have to put anything in it. Okay, so there's my inside. We've got that going. Cut yourself a piece of, from another piece of, I have a whole bunch of these cut. But cut this down, and this piece needs to be, it's gonna be a smaller piece. So from a piece of basic white, this is going to be, I don't have my ruler out with me. It's going to be, looks like it's gonna be 4.5 by, let's go this way, by 3.25, okay? 4.5 by 3.25. So let's do the 3.25 by 4.5, okay? Save those. That's a good size to reuse on something. So 4.5 by 3.25, and that's gonna set inside here. Before we set it inside, let's stamp it. And so what I want to do is I'm gonna stamp this edge. And so you could use leaves, whichever, I'm just creating some background and some interest. I'm not doing a whole ton of, it's not specific. So it could be any stamp you're using. So I am using here, this is the large image from the Simply Succulents. And I'm just gonna stamp this down the edge. Okay, so there's part of it. And now I think I'm gonna turn this, just so it's not the same exact image, and I'm gonna layer in some stamps right in and about there. Okay, so there you have it. I had to stamp it the first time because I'm like, uh-oh, it might have had a different color on it before I just went ahead and inked it up. So I wanted to make sure it wasn't a muddy color. But there's my cinnamon cider. And while this is still pretty freshly stamped, I'm gonna come in here with my Wink of Stella and I'm gonna paint here and there. And what that does, while it's still wet, is it just kind of blends and it adds, it moves the color just a little bit. And I'll pick this up so you can see the difference. So right in here where I've painted and where I haven't, so see as you do a little bit of that, how it just kind of moves the color just a little bit. So it gives it a little bit more dimension than it would have had if you had left it alone. You don't have to do this, or you could even do it more enhanced with a water painter or with a Stampin'. We haven't used them very much, but one of those, and I got a blot right here. I got a little bit too much. A blender pen. Do you know the blender pens, the alcohol, you get a 2-pack of them. Maybe it's a 3-pack, I don't remember. But anyhow, those are really cool pens too for this same sort of technique for doing a quick blend. Okay, so now this piece here is going to set in the center. Okay, so that when we shut this, you have a little bit of that border peeking through. Okay, gives it just a little bit of interest. Now we need to do some more stamping for the inside of this card. I like this greeting that says, "Kind people are my kind of people." And so I'm going to stamp that in Evening Evergreen. And I've already mounted it on the block, so I know it's stamping the way I like it. And I'm gonna put that kind of right up here. There it is, there's that. And I'm also going to use the word thanks. And let me show you, you might not have caught it. I did mention that there's a little tag in here. And so in your Use It Up kit, you do have a little white tag. And so with that white tag, I just love this layer right in here. I originally had just stamped it on the layer here, and I'm like, gosh, I want a little bit more interest, a little bit more design element working in this. So we're gonna stamp this one. I'm gonna stamp the word thanks pretty much at the top. Okay, just straight across. To that, I'm gonna add a nice little hole punch here. Okay. You could use any size of hole punch. And I did splatter it. So let's do a little splatter action. There's that. I'm not going to even worry about the whole thing because it doesn't all show. But we will give it a little wink. There's that wink. Okay. And now this is going to come right into here, and it's going to set in with dimensionals. So let's not do that just yet, because what I want to do is I'm going to add some more linen thread. See, on my original I have that linen thread. So this time, from your braided linen thread here, or trim is what it was called, braided trim, this time grab two. Grab two. Get over here. There it is. So grab yourself two. You might have to do one at a time. If you do two, sometimes when they might not be in this, they might be opposite and they'll kind of kink up on each other. Set that aside. So this time we're going to do two. And I'm going to run these through here. Okay. Oh, hi, Vivian. How are you today? And this is really long. It doesn't need to be this long, but we'll trim it. Okay. Okay, nice big giant bow. So we'll eke that down. You know what I'm going to do here, folks? I'm going to shift this down a little bit so I can save this. Be one thing if there was just a little bit left over, but there is going to be a lot left over. So I'm just going to shuffle it over to one side. Okay. Now we'll tie the bow, and then I'll trim off what's left over. Okay. Here we go. And you can make that as big or as large as you like. But again, like I said earlier, I like to really tighten up my bows so that they don't kind of come undone as the recipient receives it. Okay, I should have even put it over further, but there it is. So there's some, save this larger piece. I'm gonna tie that into something for our next card. All right, so now I'm gonna put this one on with dimensionals, and it's going to tuck up on this one side. So I'm just gonna put two on there. That'll be plenty. It's cardstock, whereas this piece where I did like 5 or 6 even, I don't even remember, it's not cardstock. So now I'm tucking this in, and I'm moving it down just a little bit so that the tag does pop over the edge. It cantilevers over, but it is in line with the edge of my DSP. Okay, so there's that. I really like this touch. I don't know, it just kind of came to me to add this tag here, but I think I would definitely do this layout again. I like it a lot. Okay, now from all your plant pieces, you just kind of grab some plants, and we're gonna kind of just plant things right inside. So I'm gonna start with this one here, and you can see it's just even a portion. I don't have the whole thing. Remember how I cut it off on the first card? So I have that kind of tucked right in here, like so. Whoops, don't catch that. And I like these little, they're almost like, you know, it's like they're not, They could be succulents. I mean, they're succulents, but I'm not exactly sure. But you can see I didn't have a whole piece. It kind of was on the edge. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more, but I'm still going to use it anyway. So I'm going to kind of just tuck these into here. So I know that I'm going to use these up right there. And let's see, I don't have the exact same plants I had on my first card, but that's okay. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. I'm going to tuck this one in here. And I have this piece that could come out over into here. And if I wanted to, I could add that. Or I had mentioned, just bring out any leaf punches that you have and some scraps of green paper. And I'm going to combine some punched pieces with some, with the Designer Series paper pieces. And I think you'll see that it looks really cool. Okay. So this is just, I found a scrap. I keep larger scraps like this. So I'm going to punch out, this is the leaf border punch. Okay. So I'm just going to punch a couple of those out. And I think that's all I used on the front. On my original, you can see there's one there and there's one right here. This card, I didn't have this big, huge plant. I'm using a smaller one. So I might need another big leaf. So not out of Mossy Meadow, and it could be any color green. Just pull a green. It all works with this paper. I'm going to use the bow punch, and I think this one I'm going to punch it out of. I'll punch it out of Evening Evergreen. I'm just going to kind of work in there, and I have those two pieces. Save that scrap for our last card. Okay, so just kind of whatever you have. It doesn't have to be exactly the same punch. You might even turn to a floral stamp set and dies that has a that have leaf punches or leaf dies in there, and you can kind of, you know, embellish and add some things in that. I'm going to trim this off just because it's a little long for my planter, but maybe I tuck that up in there, and that kind of helps to take that, fill that void that I didn't have on my first card because I had more of the Designer Series paper. And I have kind of one tucked right in here, and I have another one up in there. So now I just need to kind of glue these in place and add a little wink of Stella to them. Okay, so this one's already anchored. Let's work this side. So I'm going to glue this one in place first. I'm just going to do a little bit of glue right there, and then just kind of slip it right inside the planter. And it's kind of spilling out the sides. Okay. And there was a piece, this piece. I'm going to do this piece first because it's layered in a little further back. And I'm just doing the tips of them so that the tops of the flowers have some freedom and aren't stuck glued down to the page. They're kind of lifting naturally off. Okay, the tag is awesome. So clever, so cute. Thank you, Kayleen. I thought it was kind of a cool little detail. I liked it. On these two, I actually have dimensionals on the backs of them. So I'm actually going to hold them together, kind of like so, and then put one dimensional on here. Okay, and I'm going to do just a little bit of glue, and you're going to be like, what the heck? I'm going to do it on the front because it's going to kind of be sitting in this box. Okay, kind of eke that over. Okay, there's that. Now let's do this side. So I'm going to glue this one down in. Again, not worrying about putting glue on the top because I want it to have it appear coming off of the page without having to put a dimensional on it. Okay, we'll plant this one. Whoops. Hello, that was a lot of glue, but we'll cover it up right like that. Cute. Cool. And then this last one is going to, It was tucked in there, but I think I'm actually tuck it right there. Like I say, each card's a little bit different. I'm just gonna come in here and kind of touch these, make sure they're sticking. Okay, so there's my front. I'm going to kind of work my bow a little bit different. And I'm gonna come in and all of these plants have a little wink on them. It just livens them up and makes it a Liz card. Okay, for the finishing touch on the front of this card, I am going to add some more of the classic matte dots like I did on that first card. This time what I want to do is, if you noticed on my original here, they are cinnamon cider. If you have a blend, it works on these. You can color them. Okay, you can't do it with a regular marker, but you can do it with the Stampin' Blends. Okay, so I'm just gonna color 3 of them with my cinnamon cider blend. Let that dry. And if you want them more intense in color, then come back in once they're really, really dry and color them again. So I'm gonna give it just a little bit more. If you do it too soon, which I think this may be just a little bit too soon, it almost pulls the color off. So let them dry. We'll fast dry like that. And then I'll scoop these up off the bottom since the tops might be a little wet still. And add these to my card. And I just put them there. And we'll do another one right there. And the last one on the opposite side of the planter. Right about there, okay? And there you have it. There is the second card that is the Tradesy. So if you're just now popping in, what we did is we started by cutting these pieces, by cutting 2 3/4 off of both, and then I traded. I took this cinnamon cider and now it's here, and I took the Evening Evergreen and rotated it, and it's on here. So these are what I call cut and trade, okay? So, or cut and share, cut and swap, whatever you want to call it, but that's that type of trick that you can do when you are creating. So let's see what you do with that cut and swap trick, cut and share, whatever we want to call it, okay? And now let's move along to our last card. And our last card, it's really, really pretty. This is a nice, lovely thank you note that gives you space to write and space to tuck in a gift card or a stick of gum, as Jolinda said last time, remembering what my grandparents used to do on my birthday cards. But the ribbon carrier, instead of being on the back, is going to be on the front of the card. And then you open it up to a second front of the card, which I think is kind of cool. Then we have a nice use of this designer series paper. You know, we often say, oh, I want to see both sides. Well, this is the card to do it with. And then inside we have a little bit of stamping where you can write, and then a pocket to tuck in whatever you might want to add to your card. So let's put this one together. It's really pretty, and it's going to use up a nice chunk of designer series paper. So in your pack, you have a piece of 6x6, and to start this out, what I want you to do is we're going to cut off a 1/2 inch, but you have to make sure you cut off the right 1/2 inch, okay? Because we want the bricks to be going horizontal, and we want our leaves to be upright. So if you actually turned it this way, it would look okay, but I think it was actually designed because the leaves, these big Monstera leaves, they grow downward. So I think this is the direction of the paper. So making sure it's horizontal, we're gonna take a 1/2 inch off the bottom, okay? Because this is 6x6, we need it to be 5.5. So we're gonna be 5.5 by 6. So I'm taking this bottom section off. So take a 1/2 inch off, okay? You could use that to trim out the inside of a card if you would like, okay? But now what I want to do is that it is 6 inches wide. we need to score it at 4 1/4. Okay, so get your cutting blade out of the way. And as you're doing this, so you have your bricks going the right way, and let's just turn it over to double check our leaves are going the right way as well. Okay, so 4 1/4. Score it with your scoring blade, but make sure you don't push as hard as you normally do. This is Designer Series paper. So just give it a light score and maybe just back and forth lightly to get it in there. And there it is. You just don't want it so hard that you crack the paper, okay? So there's that. Let's give this a crease with our bone folder. And for this last project, I'm going to do what I say, tidy up the ship. I'm gonna turn my scratch paper over. There we go, it's not quite as busy. Okay, so that's part of what we're gonna do to start our card. So to me, this is a great way to create a pocket and to see both sides of the paper. And you're going to need a card base that is 5 1/2 by 8 1/2, okay? And then scored at 4 1/4. This one is Sahara sand. Oh, I haven't ended. I hope other people aren't getting that message. Oh, sorry, Doris. The thrills of being live. Okay, so now when we put this together, which we're going to do, but we still need to cut one last little piece of paper. As we put this together, we're going to make sure that we actually have the pocket this time. Okay, so we need this piece of paper right here. This is leftover. We used it on the first card as a circle, the second card as a planter, and we're going to cut this off right where the circle ends. So it doesn't have to be the exact same measurement, but remember I said cut your circle right to the far side and to the very end. So I'm gonna cut this, it's about 2 inches, okay? I might be able to eke out another, yeah, so I'm like at 2 1/8, okay? So we're gonna need this piece. This is gonna go on the inside. And you guys, we are even gonna use this piece right here. So I want you to trim that off as close to the circle as you can get it. Okay, and I'm gonna use that to add a little detail in on the pocket so that the recipient can see that pocket. Okay, takes their eye to it. So before we add this, let's add this, okay? And so I'm just gonna add this, because it's not the full strip, I'm not gonna put it dead center. You could if you want, but that's not me. I'm gonna put it down towards the bottom, okay? Let me just kind of get this out of the way. So I'm just adding a teeny bit of glue. Teeny bit of glue right around the bottom here. Okay, and then this, just like so. Third time it's quit. Huh. I wonder if it's your connection. Marcia says her video hasn't ended. So, okay, so you just want to make sure you don't have too much sticky right there. I had a little bit sneak out the edge. Now to glue this down on this back side, which feels like the front because it is on the front of the card. So this is the opposite edge. So along the score line is where I'm going to add some glue. Okay, and now what I want you to do is this is going to come right in here on this edge, but don't like make sure it's all hunkered down nice and tight. I want you to shut your card and then eke this one out just a little bit so it folds over nicely and it doesn't catch, okay? Because if I did it right on the edge, see how this isn't right exactly on the edge? Can you see that? Then I would have to trim off some of my Sahara sand and it would be a little tight. Okay, so that's how I have my pocket. And I actually got my pocket in this card. I didn't forget it like the last one. Okay, so that's where that's going. And now we have our card base ready and we can start to design. So let's look at let's look at, we're actually going to do the second card first. How's that? Because this is a 2 cards in one. So what I want to do for this card is this piece is going to set in here, okay? And with some of your scraps that you have left over, use your layering circles to cut yourself a circle that fits any of your greetings. And so I'll just show you the greeting I used. I used a greeting from the set here. I think I used the So Kind. Kind people are my kind of people, okay? So I need to, and you could do a square, you could do a circle, you could do whatever. You could use your circle punches. I think I'm just gonna do, I have an old punch on hand. I'm using up what I have. So this is a 1 3/4 circle, but use whatever size you have that fits your greeting. So your greeting might be a little bigger, it might be a little smaller. Whatever it is, just kind of match that and add a greeting. I'm adding a greeting in dark green. This is Evening Evergreen. So use what you have on hand. Okay. And I'm just going to put that right in the center. Voila. Okay. And so the other elements here on the inside of this are going to be, guess what? Splatters. So we're going to need to do those. And then if you remember on one of your pieces in your Use It Up kit, or if you're grabbing your Bloom Where You're Planted, you have a piece. This is the one where the wood grain is going horizontally, but on the back, there are lots of plants that you could cut out. So you can see I have already cut out 2 of the plants for myself, okay? Because I didn't want to do that on camera. So I want this one right here. This is the first one I want. And what I did is I actually cut the leaves apart so that I could get down in here to remove that background. Because like I said on the first card, if the backgrounds aren't the same, you really want to take as much of that away as you can. If they are the same, it blends in. So that could be your trick, is to use a color that blends in with the black backgrounds of your not background paper, but detailed paper. Okay. So also on my original here, I cut off the handles on my pot. I think I'll leave them on this time. But in order to cut that out, I cut around the leaf, but then you can just kind of glue it back together. Does that make sense? Okay, that way you can get in there without having to punch a hole. Okay, so before I actually assemble this, let's splatter. Okay, so let me get my original out of the way here, and we will splatter again with that same marker. Okay. The nice thing about continuing some of these techniques throughout your cards is it gives the cards, and I'll do a little bit of wink here, it gives the cards continuity, and I've said this before, that if you wanted to give them all 3 together as a gift, you know, just bundled them up with the envelopes and tied a little like jute or linen thread around them, nice little gift that you can give to somebody, and they all coordinate. They all have a nice commonality. Okay, so I'm going to glue this one down. I'm going to leave this open just a little bit on the one side so that I can get all my details in. Okay, so it's almost like I am creating a pocket, but it's not going to be a pocket. Okay, so on this card, this particular spot, I'm going to give myself an even border on the right, bottom, and left side. Okay, and I'm going to tuck this plant in right here like so. Now I'll be honest, on this plant, I left, you know, see how the edge of the paper is cut? And my pot is cut off, because here's what the pot should look like, okay? So that's why I kind of tucked it underneath, but that way, don't be afraid to not use them, but look how good that still looks, okay? All right, so what I'm gonna do with this one is I am going to let these leaves kind of fly and be free, but the ones that are smaller behind this big leaf, I am gonna glue those down because I don't wanna see that funny cut edge. Okay, so just a little bit of glue on those, a little bit of glue on that, and now I can tuck this in, kind of get it where you want it, And now I can glue that down. That way those kind of stay in place and this one is free. And it doesn't look like my paper is cut funny. Now this piece here is going to glue right in there like so. And I actually had it with dimensionals at first because you know me, that's just where I'm gonna go, right? But it was bulging in the card funny, and so I took them out. Because you know, we like that dimension because this is a little flat, but it is on the inside of the card. Okay, so remember that piece of linen thread that was extra long, and I said, we're gonna save that and use that. I'm gonna save that and use that right now. So I'm just gonna tie a little bow out of that. So this is the leftover piece from that tag on our last card that said thanks, okay? And you don't want this bow too big because you don't want it to spill out. You don't want it, it's kind of like a, you know, we're saving it as a surprise. And that's gonna glue dot right there. Now on this one, I actually remember on the last card where we punched some extra leaves, I have an extra leaf in here, but I felt like it needed it. For some reason, this layout, I don't feel like it needs it. But if you feel like you want to add more leaves to your plants, you can. But I'm not going to this time. Just because I don't want to. I don't know. Sometimes when you cut it out, maybe it's that I left the handles on the pot. And that made it a little bit of a difference. Okay, so I'm using my Take Your Pick tool this time to grab a glue dot, maybe, so that I can add this like right in here. Use the lid end to kind of push that on, burnish that. Get out. And I'm going to add that right there. Okay, so we have a little bit of that linen thread dimension on the inside, but I don't want my ends to show when you shut the card. So I am going to trim the ends pretty tight. Okay, so that way when the card is closed, you don't see it. Okay, so now let's move to the front of our card. Okay, so here's our second card front. Here's our first card front. And for this, literally, you guys, these are the scraps. So if I were to peel this soft succulent piece of green off of my card here, this one, you would see all kinds of punch outs. So what I did is on the piece of cardstock that had a punch out, that's what I used to back my piece here. I was trying to find the one that I had here, this one right here. See this? So I'm gonna use this again, and I'm going to also cut myself, I'm gonna find a scrap. So I have a scrap of soft succulent here. It's kind of a big scrap. But so just grab any greens. It could be garden green, it could be mossy meadow, it could be soft succulent. Whatever you have on hand, just any old green. So there's, well, that's more mossy meadow. But here's garden green. That, look how good that looks with, I think I'm going to do garden green this time. How good that looks with the plant. So just any old scraps of green. And we're going to cut two pieces the same size, and size-wise, they are, let's see, let me bring my measurement in here. Sometimes I write these and put it on a Post-it note on the back, but I forgot. So it's 2 1/4 by 4 1/4. So let's cut two pieces that are 2 1/4 by 4 1/4. So I could use this if I wanted and just kind of hide it behind, but I have enough that I think I'm just going to use a full piece. So here's 2 1/4 by 4 1/4. So there's some mossy meadow. Look, they're not even going to be the same colors as the first time I made the card. But that just goes to show you how awesome it looks in multiple colors. So this one's not quite 2 1/4, but that's okay. I'm going to get as much of it as I can. And maybe I'll use this one in back. No, I'll use it in front. It'll still work. Okay, so there's that. Okay, bring my original back in. So I'm just gonna layer the two colors and my plant, okay? And so my other plant is this piece over here, and I've already cut that out, okay? But I have to show you something. It had a leaf cut off. See that edge right there? Okay, I didn't let that stop me from using a great focal image here. All I'm gonna do now is just, oops, not that pair of scissors, those are fabric only, is I'm just gonna round this out and shape it. I'm just gonna pretend like I'm back at Bloomster's, and I'm gonna shape the leaf, and there you have it. I just made it work perfect. And I mean, it only came a little bit further out, but see how good that looks on the succulent or on that's garden green there, or we could actually reverse it and go that way. I like them both, okay? But before we actually put this all together, let's stamp this. So I'm gonna stamp the garden green, and you can stamp it with any image you would like, any leaves. You're just creating background. And so I'm gonna use soft succulent ink here. And again, you could use any color ink. You could use garden green, you could use Versamark, you could use evening evergreen. But I'm gonna create a background piece of texture paper here. So with my big image, you might have a large leaf image that you're stamping multiple times, but so I'm just gonna stamp that, and then I'm gonna turn my image so it's not the same. And I'm gonna stamp this section. It looks like I need just a little bit more right there, so I'll use this one to just tuck right in there. Okay, cool, nice piece of background paper. It's got a little texture. It's a great image. And notice it's not even the same color green ink, how well that worked. This is soft succulent on garden green, okay? And now I'm gonna just layer these two pieces, cockeyed, you know, so we've got a little bit of that, you know, combination of green on green. We'd call this at Bloomster's clashing reds and clashing greens. We would do it quite a bit with greenery or with roses in the clashing reds. And that means just using a whole bunch of red and, you know, red tones in all, or a whole bunch of green tones. So in all shades, kind of makes it kind of fun. And it totally creates dimension. Okay, so this is going to stick onto this with dimensionals. So I'm gonna add kind of a bunch of dimensionals using on this because it's paper and not cardstock. So, because we don't want it to sag. So I am gonna trim some down. You remember I trimmed some down that I can come in here and get this nice big leaf, and I'll trim a few more down. Grab my scissors. Okay, I want a few more of these. I like this shape down here. Okay. And I'm gonna come up this leaf. Whoop, that one might be a little big for that. And I'm gonna come up this one. Maybe. I need my mini dimensionals. But I told you last time I'm out of mini dimensionals. Okay, so there's that. So Kayleen, are you still watching? You said wow, but I'm not quite sure what the wow was for. So if you want to comment back. Okay. All right. Enough of that. Oh, I almost ripped my thingy. Oh, that wouldn't have been good. See that right there? We will save it. Okay, so I'm just going to add this on to the left, to the right side. Okay. Look, I almost, oh, it did. It tore right there. Shoot, queen. Oh, bummer, bummer. Okay, well, hopefully you can't see it. We'll pretend like it's not there. Okay, so we're gonna need that. And I mentioned to you that this card is, so sometimes what we've done is we've put a ribbon carrier on the back so that when they untie it, the ribbon doesn't come apart from the card. Okay, so Kayleen says the pattern, etc. Okay, just how cool the stamping looks on the tag, different ink colors. Yeah, it is, it's amazing how, you know, things And it just goes to show you don't have to have the exact same thing. I'm not even using the exact same thing from card to card. I'm using up scraps. Okay, so thank you for that comment. Now I'm going to come back to my braided linen trim here, and this is going to go, and it's going to come around and it's going to tie in the front. Okay, so let's just do that. And I'm not going to officially tie it because we have a tag and things to add to this. But let's just kind of get it to where we want it. And now as we put this piece down, what I'm going to do is I'm going to sandwich that ribbon. I'm not going to glue it, and so it can still slide back and forth, but I'm going to sandwich it in there so that when it's untied, it's still connected to the card, okay? So let's see. Let's just get this going. So what I'm going to do is just put glue across the top and glue across the bottom. So now I can still even kind of move it up and down from side to side where I need it to be. Now, as I glue this piece down, I am looking to make my plant kind of vertical. Okay, so my papers might or might not be straight. It's okay. But I think the plant should be, okay? There's that. Okay, with a scrap of green, any green you have on hand, I think I'll use this scrap of soft succulent. Actually, I have a smaller scrap I'm gonna use. Where'd it go? Here it is. Here's a scrap. I'm going to make myself a tag, okay? So cut yourself about a 1/2 inch. Well, I'm gonna do about 5/8 inch, okay? And I'm going to stamp the word thanks on here. Okay, I'm clean the stamp. I'm gonna stamp it in white and emboss it in white, okay? I really, I mentioned in my last class that I've been enjoying doing the white embossing on light colors. That's kind of my thing right now. So that's why I chose the soft succulent. Of course, on my original, it's Mossy Meadow, but you get the idea. Okay, get that good and juiced up. Okay, I'm just gonna do that right in that tag. White embossing powder. I keep mine in a little Ziploc tub, Gladware, whatever this is. Okay, give it a flick. I should have given this a little bit of an embossing buddy, but I didn't, I forgot. So I'm gonna heat this up, but I actually need to get, I'm gonna do it on top of my trimmer here. I don't want it on my granite. I'm getting my heat tool warmed up. There you have it. So Kayleen's asking, do I like white or Versamark? I think is what she's asking for embossing words. Okay, so I'll be honest with you. I prefer Versamark to embossing with white powder. And let me tell you why. I think if your words are detailed, this one's not super, super, super like tight and microfine in its design. The Versamark seems to, I don't know, it just has you get a clear image. I'll tell you my reason for not having Versamark out is because we already had white out for all the splattering. So I was being, I was being lazy, not pulling out another ink pad. So, but yes, Kayleen, I do really like Versamark for white embossing. That's one of my favorites. Okay, so I am going to punch a flag end on this. Maybe, if I can get it in here straight. Okay, I can't get it in straight. It might just be crooked. Okay, there we go. I'm eyeballing it. spyballing. That's what my friend Laura would say. And now I want to do the same thing to this other end, but it's a little long. I'm going to do the point end on this one. Okay, so finding that center on that. There's that. Okay, so I know it seems a little long, but that's okay because I'm going to punch a hole in it and run the ribbon through it. So I'm going to punch a smaller hole than before. Nope, that is my bigger one. I'm going to punch this one. Nope, I'm going to punch the bigger one because we're on camera and I'm never going to get it through. Okay, like my cheating methods here. Okay, so now what I want to do is I'm going to poke this through. Could you imagine me trying to put that through the smaller hole? I did it earlier on my original. Okay. So now this is going to come up and through and tie right there, and we can attach this. And what I want to do is just put some dimensional right here, and then it's going to lay on top of the pot. Okay, so just one dimensional should do it if I can find them. Here they are. Would you believe it? I put it back where they were supposed to be. And look, I'm actually going to put the dimensional right there. That way I know it'll be in the right spot. And just a little touch of glue here. Okay. And now I can place, now I do want this thanks greeting to be parallel to the edge of my card. Okay, I don't want it crooked. So now when I bring this around and tie this, the bow will be right up here on top of that, that hole. Okay, it'll look really good. But one more detail, and you could detail this with anything. I'm going to detail it. This, you have this punch out in your Use It Up kit. But just grab yourself, maybe you're going to use another piece of this or one of our designer series papers or something. But I'm just going to put a little detail down in here, and I'm going to cut this off because I don't need it to be quite so big. And I'm going to glue this down from the back. And this is going to just set inside there. And it's just another pop of color that kind of ties into the front. Okay, and now I'm not going to tie it shut, but we are going to tie it shut eventually. We have a few things to add to this, like gems and Wink of Stella, but before we do that and tie it shut, we got to stamp the inside. So let's stamp the inside first, then we can finish the front. Okay, so for this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my background image again. Okay, and I'm going to use it in, I'm going to stamp it in, I think I'm going to stamp it. I stamped it the front in the soft succulent, but I'm going to stamp the inside with cinnamon cider to pull in this little detail here. And remember, it's on the opposite side of this. So just ink that up. And we'll do just kind of like we did on that panel, is we're just going to do a little bit of detail there. And just a little bit more detail right there. Okay, so just a swoosh across the bottom. And then let's go to, you make the ordinary extraordinary. And I'm going to stamp that in evergreen. Okay, right here. And I'm going to do it at the bottom. And I know it's different, but it's just because we're doing a slightly different approach. And so I'm going to do that kind of right in here like so. Okay. You make the ordinary extraordinary. And you could do anything you want. I'm just kind of giving you ideas of stamp placement. And it has the splatters. Or if it doesn't, it does now. And a little wink. Because we can. And we'll let that dry for just a second. So now you have the perfect spot here to add a gift card or, you know, a folded $20 bill or whatever. Or like Jolinda said, the stick of gum. But, you know, you could do something. There's like Ghirardelli chocolates, tea bags would be sweet. I'm just airing this off. The dimension paper on the other card is driving me crazy. This dimension, the dimension paper on the other card. Wait, what are you talking about? Fill me in. Okay, so now let's finish this front because it looks a little unfinished right now. So I'm going to pull this around, tie my bow. Okay, and I want my bow to be right here where the hole is for my tag. Okay, nice big bow that kind of flushes that out a little bit. Now let's add some matte dots. And we will put them on with my take your pick tool. Here it is. I have such a mess every time. And I'm going to use the cream colored ones for this. Or let's see, how did the white look? The white kind of pop a little too much. So I'm going to do the cream. Okay. Whoops, that's not where I want it to be. It just kind of landed there. So I'm going to do this one right about there. And then a small right in there with it. And then I'm going to tuck one more down here on this other side to kind of bring that together. And now we will wink of Stella. I'm not going to do the cinnamon cider to this. You could if you wanted, but I just don't quite want that. I just basically want wink on the front of this to really get it going, get it nice and juicy. There it is. To really get it sparkly when you pick it up, especially these green tones. And then I can come in and add a little bit more of her to the leaves and such. Woo, that's lots of sparkle. Okay, there it is. Look at the paper, there's a dimensional on the back of it. Well, when I open it, I wouldn't be surprised. I find dimensional backings everywhere in funny places. I'm like, why is it in the dog food? It was in my big bin of dog food. So I'll find it, Kayleen. Thank you. So there you have it. There are 3 really cool plant-themed or leaf-themed cards, whichever you want to call them, using up the bloom where you're planted paper. This one was the cut and swap. And then this one here was using a piece of designer series paper as a card front and pocket. But it uses a substantial amount of paper, which, if you've got a full pack of DSP, there's, 48 pieces in a 6x6 pack or 12 pieces in a 12x12 pack. So use it up. Don't be afraid to cut it and use substantial amounts of it. And don't be afraid to use every last bit of it. I'm not going to use this, but we used that piece to death because it was such a cool anchor piece. So post your photos of things that you're making. I'm going to post these photos. You could post yours in the comment. I'd love to see what you've done using this idea of the piece of DSP as the front or the card swap, the cut and swap. So I am so grateful for what you have shared today in the comments. So Kayleen says it's on the other card. Oh, on this card. Maybe this one? We're looking for the runaway dimensional. Okay, you could even play with that. So since I did it and since we're here, see how this one's intended to be the card front, but this could be cool too. Is do this as the front, make it a little bit more dimensional, give it some dimension and keep this one more flat. And that would be really cool. And you could run your ribbon through here. So just giving you all kinds of ideas. Again, grateful you were here. I will catch you next week for Technique Time pickup class. And it will be fun. Watch for the things that you're going to need for that class. And we will get our fingers sticky and definitely inked up. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.